Hello word nerds, my name is Helen, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit about images and how you can use them in your writing. So the reason that I wanted to talk about this with you guys today is that, as some of you know, I have recently gone back to university and I am taking a couple of creative writing classes this semester, and in the same week both of them happened to talk about image, and both of them were kind of referring to them in different ways because one of them is a poetry class and one of them is a creative fiction class, but the information from both of them is useful for writing. I think that a really good place to start with this is, what is an image? And the simplest answer that I can give you is that it is something that evokes the senses, so it makes you hear, see, smell, taste, or feel something. And there are different kinds of imagery. There's concrete imagery, which is exactly that. It's more of the there in your face, you can see it, you can feel it, that kind of thing. And there's abstract images, which use different language that is usually more figurative and it's open to interpretation, whereas concrete imagery is exactly what you see is what you get. So to steal my professor's example for what is the difference between the two, concrete imagery would be the cake smelled fresh and buttery, whereas abstract imagery might be more like the cake smelled like her sidewalk caramelized childhood. You can see here that the cake smelling fresh and buttery is a more literal thing. It's something that you can imagine the smell of, whereas the cake smelling like the sidewalk, what is it? The cake smelling like her sidewalk caramelized childhood could have so many different meanings depending on the context and also how you as the reader choose to interpret it. Of course, abstract imagery tends to work a little bit better on the poetry side of it, and that of course was an example from my poetry class. But in regular creative writing, imagery has a very important role as well, as it really helps your reader get super involved with your story. It really helps them connect with the story. So to use imagery well in creative writing, we tend to associate it with setting. And the easiest way to think about this is like you're putting a setting under a microscope. You want to move away from the generalized idea of that setting and focus in on the details. So instead of saying they walked into a bakery, you can talk about what kind of bakery it is. You can talk about what you smell when you walk through the door. You can talk about how many people are inhabiting the area. Is it warm? Is it cold? Is there anything tangible? Do they sell fresh bread and you can pick it up and hear the crunch of the crust? There's all these different kinds of really specific things that you can work in to your setting and give those images to your readers. This is also a really nice way to start using tone within your story, because if you walk into a place and it feels warm and inviting, then it's more apparent to the reader that the tone of the scene is going to be that of a warm and inviting place. It's going to be a happier tone than if you walk into some place and it's cold and dark and dank. An image can also be from a specific object. If you go into detail about the way a certain object feels, or if that object has a smell, that is also going to create a very vivid image of that object for your reader. And then that object that you've put this time and investment in can be used throughout your story to create something of significance. So for example, this is a kind of poor example, but we're going to go with it because it's from my own writing, so we can use it without it being an issue. I wrote a short story for my creative writing class that was about a young girl going grocery shopping with her father, and the whole thing sort of an allegory for death. And she has a shopping basket, and it would be very easy for that to just be shopping basket. You could not go into very much detail about that. However, if you use that shopping basket and you talk about how it pinches the skin of your forearms because it's gotten heavy, that creates more of an image in your reader's mind. To imbue this object with significance, you need to see it at least 3 times throughout the story. In the case of this shopping basket, It's mentioned when it's getting heavy and she can feel it in her arms. It's mentioned again when she overhears her father talking about his grief. And then the heaviness of that basket becomes associated with the heaviness of the grief. And then, at the end of the story, the basket is emptied and it's left behind. And your reader understands that it's the idea that this little girl and her father are letting go of their grief and they're beginning to move on with their lives. The example that my prof likes to use is the movie Bridesmaids. And I can't really get into why, but if you know about what happens in the wedding dress scene, then you understand. Because the wedding dress does not mean a wedding to us by the end of the movie. It is instead associated with us to a very specific scene. So by doing these kinds of things, you can imbue this object with some sort of significance, and by putting that detail into your setting, you're creating a setting that is immersive, and you're creating a character out of your setting, and that's going to help your readers just be that much more invested in your story. So that is kind of my short introduction to the idea of image and ways that you can use it within your writing. If you have any questions about image, please feel free to leave them for me down below. I will do my best to answer them or point you into directions for where you can find the answers that you're looking for. I absolutely love hearing from you guys. And as always, join the Word Nerds this Sunday for our Sunday live chat. I'm not sure when this video is going up, so I'm not sure what the live chat topic is about, but it will be here on this channel at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we will be very happy to see you there. Goodbye!